right, so it is Monday, January 26th, 2026, and I'm going to call to order the City of Burlington's Board of Finance at 5:02 p.m. Our first item is the agenda. Is there a motion on the agenda?
Move to adopt our agenda. Or do you want me to? Yes, I'm waiting for it to load, but I think I that way.
Right, that is our only, yep,
Excellent.
that's the motion. Thank you, Councilor Barlow. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Travers. Thank you. All in favor of the motion indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. We have our agenda. Our first item is our public forum. It is the practice of the Board of Finance to first go to members of the public in the room and then online. It is a snowy night in Burlington, and I think it is just staff in the room here, and they are not looking like they need to make public comment. So we'll go online, and first we have former City Councilor Sharon Busher. Sharon, welcome.
Hi, I'm glad you're all there. I hope you're safe getting home. So I'm calling because I wanted to speak to two items. One has to do with the BED bonds. It's just a process question. There are lots of blanks because you don't have the bonds, you haven't sold them yet. And how does the Board of Finance and City Council learn of the actual dates of maturation of the bonds, the principal amounts, the interest rates, the interest payment, etc.? Does that come back to the board and council in the form of a memo? I know it did when I was on the council, but I just wanted to understand. You don't have to answer, obviously, it's public forum, but I just was hoping that there would be a way to track that online. So anyways, that's one thing. The second thing has to do with the big HR, Department of Finance and Admin request with the positions, reclassifications, and the link to Modern Gov. I had one query. I know that there's some retro pay, and I know the goal is not to find yourself in this situation. And in the memo, it stated that there was a lag between the actual moving people into those positions and having them function at that level and the time it took to do the reclass. I didn't know whether there was a way to compensate. I mean, in the HR policy, there is a way to compensate people for additional duties. So I wasn't quite sure why or if that could have happened, and if it could have happened, why it didn't happen. That's just a question also. The last thing I have to say about Modern Gov is that, you know, when you get to be old, you get to see the pendulum go back and forth, and you make observations because it tells you that maybe neither end of the pendulum is actually right. And so what I've watched over time is to have things come together and be taken out of departments and consolidated for efficiency and cost effectiveness. And then I've seen them go back to departments because of factors that occurred when you did that. So my concern is that when we consolidate for cost and efficiency, individuals are then so removed from the functioning and all the areas they oversee. I think sometimes an uneven application of attention and resources can result. So my question to all is, how do you evaluate when a department becomes too large and the scope of oversight too vast that inefficiencies result and costly errors are made because of the scope of responsibility put on individuals now is too vast? And I think that's a fair question to give to all of you as you move forward with Modern Gov, not speaking against it, but ways to evaluate sooner than later to see if indeed this has become too big, and if you need to perhaps step back and reconsider or figure another way to deliver services. So I applaud you for what you're trying to do, but I share my concern with you in good faith to hope that it will prevent some of what I've seen happen in the past. So thank you.
Thank you, Sharon. Is anyone else online that would like to address Board of Finance in public, for the public forum? Raise your hand and Catherine will promote you. Catherine, are you seeing anyone else?
I do not see anyone, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. So with that, I will close public forum. And we will go on to our next item, which is our consent agenda. Is there a motion on the consent agenda? Welcome, Councilor Carpenter. You made it.
I made it.
And so moved by Councilor Carpenter.
I'll second.
Great, seconded by Councilor Barlow. Is there any discussion on the consent agenda before we vote? See none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. On to our deliberative items. Our first item is item 4.1, which is a resolution regarding the authorization for Burlington Electric Department revenue bonds for net zero energy and grid reliability projects. Welcome to our team. Thank you for venturing out in the snow. I'll let you take it from here for a high-level overview, please.
Great. Good evening. We are here as part of the process from the voter approved from November of 2024 net zero energy and grid reliability revenue bond to bring it to the board and then next to the council so we can move towards issuance in the late February, early March timeframe. And this is an exciting moment for us. The next tranche of investment that we can make in our distribution system for reliability, for more electrification, in our programs and in our IT systems and renewable plants. So Emily has more details to share and we're glad to answer questions as well.
Excuse me, so you have a memo in the packet as well as two resolutions. For clarity, this is something that City Attorney Brown and I kind of worked out at the last minute. I didn't quite get all the kinks out. So the request here is for the Board of Finance to recommend to the council not supplemental resolution number 19, but the council resolution, which I think is the first document related to this item in Civic Clerk. The Board of Electric Commissioners has adopted already supplemental resolution 19, which supplements the general bond resolution, which governs BED's issuance of electric system revenue bonds. So the Electric Commission's already done that. This would be a request to adopt the City Council resolution that's included in the packet. Key things that the resolution does and that supplemental resolution 19 also contain are authorizing the issuance of the bonds, requiring that if the final interest rate is greater than 6.5%, that we come back to Board of Finance for approval. It authorizes the mayor and the chief administrative officer and the general manager to take all steps necessary to issue the bonds. We are planning to issue the bonds to the Vermont Bond Bank. We used the Vermont Bond Bank this summer to do a refinancing. Issuing through the bond bank allows us to take advantage of the state of Vermont's credit rating, which is better than ours. It also is quite cost effective in reducing the cost of issuance. The issuance would finance not only the projects that Darren mentioned, but also would fund any additional deposit required to the debt service reserve fund and cover the cost of issuance. And then another keynote, this was the same when we came to the board this summer for the refinancing through the bond bank. If for any reason BED were to default on a debt service payment, financing through the bond bank would make the city subject to the intercept of state funds. So any state funds that would be flowing to the city would be intercepted and taken by the bond bank to cover that obligation. And BED, of course, would be obligated then to repay the city any of those amounts. Remote possibility, but a possibility, and wanted to note it for the board. And I think that's all I'll say for now, but happy to answer questions.
And just offer briefly, based on the public comment from former Councilor Busher, that we don't typically report back with a memo to the Board of Finance and City Council after issuance, but we do report to the Electric Commission in public session at their monthly meeting, and we let them know the issuance details there. So if members of the public are interested in following along, they can do so through the Electric Commission process. We were fortunate to get a very reasonable interest rate on the last bond, which was issued in April of 2022. Interest rates then spiked and are starting to come down again, thankfully. So we're hopeful that we've missed sort of that peak period between these two issuances, and we'll get a good interest rate again this time.
Thank you both of you for being here. Questions from the board or comments?
Remind me, oh, sorry. Again, your obligation to do this kind of work, you know. And I'm bringing it up just more for the public, that it's sort of, we want to do it, but it's not really optional either.
Yeah, I think if you look at this bond and the things we're investing in, the bulk of the funding is going towards a couple of buckets. One is the distribution system, the grid. So we're keeping things reliable, which we know is, you know, the number one concern of our customers, but also something that we have metrics for regulation on. We're also expanding the grid capacity. So as more Burlingtonians have electric vehicles, heat pumps, geothermal systems, and other electric technologies, we have the capacity to serve them and make sure we don't ever reach a point where we have to say to somebody, you can't install this because we don't have room on the grid. We're also putting a lot of funding here into programs for incentives, and that's also under a state regulated program called Tier 3 of the Renewable Energy Standard of Vermont. So we have incentive programs there that are part of the capitalized bond funding. We also have IT system updates that have been in process that were part of the first bond and that we're looking to finish in terms of our customer information system, our financial information system, all of which, you know, connects to regulated purposes as well as keeping up our power generation facilities. So you're correct that all of this ties out to things that we are required as a utility essentially to do. They're also serving our purpose as a local entity that wants to support climate initiatives.
Great. Councilor Carpenter, any further comments or questions from the board? Our online counselors, do you have any questions? We are all set in the room. Seeing no hands and no unmuting, I will, Councilor Travers?
I was just gonna say, no, thank you.
Oh, okay.
Thank you for the presentation.
Okay. Have to teach that to my kids. Okay, got it. Is there a motion, Councilor Barlow?
I would move to waive the reading and recommend that the city council adopt the resolution.
Thank you, Councilor Barlow. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Carpenter. Thank you. Any further discussion before we vote? Seeing none, all in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We appreciate it. Stay out there. On to our next item on our deliberative agenda, which is item 4.2, the creation of an OPC, which stands for Overdose Prevention Center, Grant and Project Manager, limited service position from my office. We have my Chief of Staff, Erin Jacobson, here to present on this item. Erin?
Thank you, Mayor. Hello, Board of Finance. I am here this evening with what I hope is a fairly straightforward proposal. The mayor's office is proposing that we be able to create one new position, which would sit in CEDO. And the title of that position is OPC Grant and Project Manager. This would be a limited service, part-time role, about 30 hours a week, exempt, non-union, grade 20 position. Some background here is that in October of 2024, we created a position which is now filled by Teresa Vicina, titled Special Assistant on Overdose Prevention Center Implementation. That position from the get-go was designed to be temporary, and that position is now expiring, with Teresa having done an amazing job thus far on our OPC implementation work, transitioning to her own consulting business. And she has agreed to stay on to ensure good continuity between the work she's been doing for the OPC implementation and then for the person who will, we hope, sit in this proposed position. This position will be entirely grant funded. We already have the monies as accepted by the City Council and Board of Finance on September 8th. These monies come from the Vermont Department of Health, And with that, this position will have no impact on our general fund. This position will ensure that we have good grant management and that we are in compliance with all of the requirements by the state and the Vermont Department of Health. This grant also requires that we have such a position. And this position, though it will sit in CETO, will have good communication and coordination with the mayor's office. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Eric. Questions or comments from the board? Councilor Barlow.
Yes, and thank you. I had a question, and you sort of hit on it. I'm hoping you can elaborate a little bit on the difference between the grant manager and the BCJR responsibilities, and that's, I guess, I have one follow-up after that.
Great, I'm happy to speak to that. So the Vermonters for Criminal Justice Reform have been identified as our community partner who will be in charge of the operations of an overdose prevention center. The city's primary responsibility is to ensure that we are managing the grant according to all of the regulations and the law, and that both the city and the provider are in compliance with those regulations. The city is not directly responsible for operations. The city is responsible for helping ensure that the operator is in compliance.
My second, thank you, that's helpful, and not just for me, but for the public who
Sure.
is interested in the distinction. I also had a question about what happens with this position, what our obligations are, should we end up not standing up an overdose prevention center? Is this, did we have any ongoing obligations to this position, or would it end with the project if it were to end? And, you know, I'm not saying it will, I'm just saying just to
No,
cover our bases.
yep, no, I appreciate these bases being covered. It's a good question. So there's two things. One, as I mentioned, per the grant, we do have to have this position. So for as long as the project is being run under the grant, under those regulations and with those state monies, we will need to have this position. If something were to change, this position is designed, though, to be a limited service position that we will end should any monies run out or the project ends. And per our personnel policy manual, we do need to review every limited service position annually to determine whether that position needs to continue. And a limited service position can only be in existence for up to 3 years. So at the end of 3 years, assuming the project is still running and the city still needs this compliance person, then we would have to consider at that time whether we need to establish a permanent position. That's a long explanation for the answer really being that this position is designed to end should the money run out or the project need to stop.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Barlow. Further questions or comments on this item? It looks like we might be all set in the room online. Any questions or comments? Seeing none, is there a motion in the room? Councilor Carpenter?
I would move to approve and recommend that the city council approve creation of the following position: OPC grant and project manager, limited service, part-time, 30 hours per week, exempt, non-union, grade 20 position.
Thank you, Councilor Carpenter. Is there a second? You, Councilor Barlow, seconds. Any further discussion on the item before we vote? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All in favor indicate by saying aye.
Hold on. Aye.
Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Erin. Board of Finance.
Thank you, Lynn, for being here. Our last deliberative item is item 4.3, which is a request for job description updates and positions reclassifications through the department, in the Department of Finance and Administration. I believe we'll have a motion on this item, given some just earlier discussion between a couple of us. Councilor Barlow?
Sure, I would move to postpone this item to a time certain of February 9th, next Board of Finance meeting.
Thank you, Councilor Barlow. That's the motion. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilor Carpenter. Any discussion on this item? I will just note that we have some more additional information that will pair and be ready for the night. That's just the main reason for the delay until our next meeting. But any further discussion or questions on this before I call the question on the motion? Okay, seeing none, all in favor, indicate by saying aye. Any opposed, nay? Motion carries unanimously to table this item until our next meeting on December. I wish, February 9th. Thank you very much. And with that, we have no further items on our deliberative agenda. With that, we can adjourn the meeting at 5:23 p.m.